Hey guys, welcome back to Shoney's Small Engines. Have here a Craftsman leaf blower, old Sears model that does not start. I'm going to show you a couple things to test out right off the bat. See if we have compression, see if we have spark. If we do, then we'll go ahead and probably look at the carb reasons for not getting fuel in there. But before we do that, let's rule out spark. Let's rule out compression. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this air box off, get a little bit of fuel into that intake, give it a couple pulls, see if we can get it to fire off. So we're going to pop this air intake off. Get that air filter out of the way. It's pretty grimy, sticky. And we're going to squirt a little bit of fuel down inside there, a little bit of two-stroke fuel. Pull the trigger, make sure that the choke isn't on. And let's give it a bunch of pulls, see if we can get it to start. Make sure the switch is on. All right, got it to start, but it bogged out as soon as I let off the throttle and tried to put it back on. So I should have showed you before. I pulled this thing 10 times and couldn't get it to start. But as you can see, it did start, but bogged right out. Now it wants to restart. So did start, did run for a little bit of time, but really hard to start. Couldn't start at all before that. And but did start with some fuel. So that does tell me I have spark. It does tell me I have compression. So let's dig into this carburetor, do a simple carb clean, probably rebuild, and I'll show you guys how to do that. It's probably the most common thing I run into with these things. I took the front chute off to give me a little bit more maneuverability when I do this. But first thing we're going to do is take this air box off. And right here we have two Allen bolts to get this air cover off. This is a 5/32. Get that out of the way. Can already tell that these fuel lines are getting pretty hard. This one just popped out. Not very good condition. That one just broke. Well, that's not going to help us. So that was definitely going to be a problem at some point. Fuel line just cracking and breaking off. Took off the throttle there. And here's your carburetor. I'm going to get in behind here with the... Pretty good. Just a little bit came off of it, but I think that'll be all right. Yeah, that should be okay. All right, let's dig into this carburetor. I'm going to blow off some of this dust real quick, this dirt, and then we'll pull it apart. All right, so we're going to have to replace these fuel lines, so let's get those off first. Sometimes they don't come off very easy. I'm just going to cut them off. I'm going to have to replace these anyway. Now, what I want to look at is this is the diaphragm. I want to make sure that's in good condition. Under here is your pump side, where there's a gasket, and like your fuel screen. So make sure all the passages are clear. We'll make sure all the gaskets are in good shape. The diaphragm isn't hardened. A couple screws here. Pop off. Here's my diaphragm. I've seen worse. Not too bad, but I'll probably replace it anyway. I have a dozen of these anyway, but I've seen worse than that. My guess is probably going to be fuel lines were the issue on this thing. Let's look at the other side here. Here's my fuel screen. You can see that's starting to get pretty dirty. Almost going to be blocking the inlet there pretty soon. So definitely an issue there. Got some dirt in the fuel screen that's going to block the fuel flow, make it hard to run with that. I'll probably spray some fluid, some carb clean through a bunch of these holes, make sure everything's going through, make sure that the fuel is going through the inlet and the needle. All right, this gasket actually looks to be okay. Again, this carb is in pretty decent shape, actually. More of a fuel line issue in my opinion. Yep, no dirt underneath there. If I have this pump, I'll replace it. If I don't, I think it's good enough condition, honestly, to leave it alone. I will clean the carb. I will replace the diaphragm since it's not as rubbery as it is new, but it's not as hard as it could be. So let's look for some of these parts quick, and if I have them, I'll replace them. But then we'll go ahead and clean the carburetor. This is a Zama Carb C1U. So I'll put I'll look up this kit in the description. You can send you a link, affiliate link to, if you need to buy it. I didn't have this gasket, but again, it looks really good. If this is like cracked or really hard and stiff, or you see a lot of dirt on it, you got to take it off and clean it, then I would recommend doing that. But again, I don't think this one's in bad shape at all. I do have the diaphragm and the gasket here though, so we're going to replace that. Let's clean up this carburetor a little bit, and then we'll replace those fuel lines. Carb cleaner here. One thing I want to do is make sure that this passage is clear to the needle on the other side. So I'm going to put a little bit of air, force air into here, and see if it comes out. It does. All right, good. So I know I'm going to be getting air through there. I don't have to replace the screen. I don't have to replace the needle. It's locking off when it needs to, and it's allowing air through, which means it's going to allow fuel through there. So let's go ahead and get this guy back together. You want to be careful with this part. You don't want to force any air through here where the primer bulb is, because there's one-way valve in there. You could mess up that valve and then have a big issue with being able to pull in new fuel. So putting this back together, this side goes on first. Sometimes you got to move the idle out of the way. This primer bulb is actually really good shape. These are orange. These are like this auburn color from factory, so it's not stained. It's just the color they are sometimes. So put the primer bulb in, making sure it comes out of there. And then we'll get these screws in. Using like a drill here like this, you don't want to tighten it with the drill. You could strip those things. I usually just get it until it's just almost snug. Then I use a hand Phillips to tighten them the rest of the way. You want to be careful using power tools on a small carburetor like this, especially steel going into aluminum. Now we're going to put in their new diaphragm and gasket. Gasket side goes down, pinwheel side goes down, gasket goes down first, then the cover here. Okay, just like that. Then the two screws. One test you can do, if you don't mind getting a little bit of clean this off pretty good, is you should feel air come out of this one, and this is your return. If you want to put your tongue on there, like I said, I don't recommend it, but I do it. Put your tongue in there, and when it releases, you'll feel suction against your tongue there, and that means it's going to be pulling fuel. You don't have to do that. Once you hook it up to the fuel lines, it will pull, but one little test to test like the one-way valve in there is to make sure that does that. All right, that takes care of the carburetor. It's nice and simple. Let's get some fuel lines on the machine. Now this tank is basically full, so I'm going to have to probably empty this unless I can. Yeah, I can't even see the fuel filter that broke off inside when I pulled that hose out. So I got to empty this, and then we'll go ahead and fish out the fuel filter. All right, now we can see inside, and we see the old fuel lines, the old fuel filter, even the catch for the gas cap is in there. So we're going to try to get that all out. Still got some grime in there now. We're going to try to clean that out. And I'll hit it with a little bit of air too. You can see some of the stuff that came out of the gas tank. That's from the old broken fuel line. The fuel line I'm going to be using is called Tygon. Tygon, it's a little more expensive than the generic stuff that you get on Amazon, but it lasts a lot longer. It's a much better quality. Doesn't feel hard, doesn't get hard. All right, it's going to give you probably 3 times the lifespan as the other stuff. So we're going to cut some to length, and we're going to replace this. There's 2 sizes. Got a tiny little hole here for your return, and you have a larger size, which is 3/16 outside diameter for the fuel line, which I have to put a fuel filter on. So what I'm going to do is feed this through, grab the other line, pull it up, put the filter in, put it back in, and cut it to length, and then we'll get the smaller size to do. That's the return line. That's so when you're priming, pushes fuel back into the tank and doesn't overflow. So I'm going to cut roughly that much right there. And usually what I do is I'm going to cut this on a little bit of an angle. Makes it a little bit easier to feed through. If it's not going, then I got to cut a harder angle. Just enough that once I get it through a little bit, I can reach in with my needle nose and grab it and pull it. Okay, now we just got to cut the end off, nice and flat. I'm definitely not going to reuse this fuel filter. We're going to get a new one, new fuel filter. Pop that guy on. These are usually pretty tight fitting. You don't really need like anything to keep it from popping off. So we got a new fuel filter. Slide that down. That should be laying flat against the bottom. So I can take the slack out just like that. Okay, good. Now I got to get the other fuel line to do the other side. This one is much narrower. Cut that on an angle again. Hook that through. We'll reach in and grab. There we go. This one doesn't have to go in real far, just enough to so the fuel line comes, the fuel goes back into the tank. We'll cut that after we get this back on. So we'll try to save this catch so you don't lose your gas cap. Just push these prongs down. There we go. Okay, now we're going to be ready to put these on. If we have to cut these down to size, we will once we get it together. But this is going to go on this direction. So let's get the fuel lines on first. We'll put the return line. Okay, get that one on. Now we're going to put the... Again, if that doesn't line up, yeah, that's pretty good. If there was too much here, I would cut those off, but I could probably pull them down a little bit into the tank. It's not a big deal, just to take a little bit of the slack out. All right. Now this guy is going to go on like this, and throttle is going to go on like this, and then our air box. Start slow in here so we don't strip anything. Alright, good. Let's make sure that the choke works. Yep. Alright, let's get some fuel in, fresh fuel. See if we can pull fuel through the carburetor and then see if we can get it to start on its own power without putting any fuel into the intake. Some fresh two-stroke fuel. Right, fuel cap on. Let's give it a couple primes. There we go. Fuel coming through. There we go. Let's see if we can start it. Choke is on, I think. Yep. All right. Step back here and give it a couple tries. All right, starts and runs, but I can tell I need to adjust the carburetor. So I want to get my tools out. This is the multi-spline one. I'll show you exactly which tool that is for this machine. You can buy a full kit, kind of like something like this that you can get on Amazon. I can put a link for that, but I have heavier duty ones that I'm going to grab and show you how to do that. All right, I have my Stens kit here. This is the multi-spline one. Sits down on top. Okay, and it'll fits in, and then we can give it a couple turns. So it was running pretty rich, and it didn't idle, so I need to bring in the I need to bring inward the both sides to make sure I do this with the air box on. So I'll put the air filter in the air box, cleaned air filter. All right, what I'm going to do is, since they're both kind of out of whack, I'm going to put them both all the way down until they touch. And this is the pilot side, I think. It's not marked, but I'm pretty sure this is, yeah, this is the high. So let's go to the low side, and we'll go one turn out. So half, one, and then we're going to go to the high side. Let's go half, one, and let's see if we can adjust it from there. Let's get it started, play with the throttle a little bit to keep it running, and if we have to adjust it, we'll go from there. All right, I'm just working them out at about a quarter turn at a time. There we go. It's a little better. Now that I have it idling, I can adjust the idle a little bit just to bring it down a little bit so it idles pretty good. Take it outside, make sure it works for a little bit, and give you my 2 cents after that. Let's get the hose back on. Let's take it outside and make sure it works. All right, guys, not much to it. Once we found out I had spark and compression. Now, if it did start and it was running pretty bad, I probably would do a compression test, but it fired right up with that that squirt of fuel. So just ended up being, small little carb clean, fresh fuel lines, new fuel filter, fired right up. Got any questions, hit me up in the comments. Check out some of our other videos, hit that like, subscribe, and catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching.